HBO's House of the Dragon is the second TV series based on George R. R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire series. The first season saw the show receive acclaim from critics and viewers, with the show receiving praise for its writing, performances, and visual effects. However, whilst I was a fan of the second season, the general consensus was that it was a significant step down in terms of quality, as shown by its series graph. But with the third season recently concluding, I'm pleased to say that this season was a roaring success. So in today's video, I'm going to be diving into why I think House of the Dragon is back to its best. And just for a heads up, this discussion will contain major spoilers. So, Season 2 left us on a huge cliffhanger, with Alicent secretly brokering a deal that would see her son Aegon murdered, Rhaenyra become queen, and take King's Landing without major bloodshed. However, unbeknownst to them, a badly injured Aegon had decided to flee the city, whilst the two factions move into place, ready for war. The Season 2 finale had received a lot of criticism for being an underwhelming conclusion to the season. However, this lack of resolution was largely due to the writers' strike that caused a halt to production, as well as budget cuts across Warner Bros., meaning the final episode had to be moved to the start of Season 3. And whilst that may have led to a frustrating conclusion to Season 2, it meant that Season 3 started off with a bang as we witnessed the Battle of the Gullet, an epic naval battle between Lord Corlys' Valyrian fleet and the Triarchy. This battle largely takes place on the sea, with it showing one of the greatest ship-to-ship confrontations that I've ever seen. We get an incredibly brutal and unflinching naval sequence that had me on the edge of my seat. You get a real insight into what it's like to be on one of these ships and how they navigate tough waters. And when the dragons finally arrive, the intensity and brutality somehow moves up a level. It's utter carnage, and Rhaenyra's arrival on the unruly dragon Sheepstealer leads to a fantastic fight between the dragons, which concludes with the shocking death of Vermax, before Jace is tragically killed. And I must say, this was probably the greatest season opener in the entire series, and I'm including Game of Thrones. It had everything you would want from this series, whilst having huge ramifications that would impact the story moving forward. With Jace not only being Rhaenyra's son, but her heir to the throne, his loss was absolutely devastating for her. This is the second child that she's lost in a pursuit of the throne, so naturally, she doesn't take his death well. Emma Darcy does really well to sell Rhaenyra's pain. You really feel it. She's a tremendous actress, and she does a great job all season. She's got such a strong screen presence, and a real aura to her. She's able to exude power and empathy in equal measure, which takes real skill. This season is very much focused on Rhaenyra acclimatising to the position of being queen, and dealing with the responsibilities that come with it. Being king or queen certainly can be glamorous, but it still comes with the most tedious parts of any job. Admin. It's not easy being in charge. You've got so many things that need dealing with, from the common folk to the lords. Everyone wants your attention, and we see Rhaenyra's struggles. She has to make some tough decisions, which can negatively impact the people that she cares about and are important to her. But it all comes from a good place. She's just trying to be a good queen. I particularly enjoyed how, with the common folk starving, Rhaenyra gathers the local noble people for what they believe to be a lavish banquet, but she tricks them, and they're served rats. As they've been hoarding food, Rhaenyra orders her men to search the homes for said food, and give them to the common folk. A risky move, considering she could make powerful enemies, but it shows how dedicated she is to doing right by her people. Since fleeing King's Landing, Aegon goes on quite an emotional journey, which I found to be a real highlight. As he's grown up with such privilege, he's not used to being treated like a normal person, and he can't handle it. He's bitter, entitled, and despite him being severely injured, he refuses to let people treat him like he isn't special, which puts him in some really tricky positions that I found highly entertaining. He's such a fun character to watch, especially when he's pissed off, which is helped by such an excellent performance by Tom Glyn Carney. He might be my MVP of the season. Behind all the bravado and narcissism, we get to see the true Aegon this season. We see him at his lowest, and even though he is a massive prick, it did hurt to see him with his supposedly dead dragon. I really enjoyed that scene and appreciated the use of practical effects to help sell the scene. Say what you will about him as a person, he clearly cared deeply for his son and his dragon, and really struggled with the deaths. He spends most of the season trying to get away from those who wish to do him harm. largely keeping his identity a secret, until he finally finds himself cornered by forces loyal to Rhaenyra. At this point, he's done running, he's done hiding who he is, and reveals his identity, to the soldiers' bemusement. It's a real show of character for Aegon, and a moment that would surely see the end of him. However, in a moment that had my jaw on the floor, we find out that his dragon Sunfire wasn't dead and had been recovering, and she just starts taking everyone out. It's a massacre, and Aegon's reaction is simply chef's kiss. I loved it. They both look like they've gone through hell, but Aegon and Sunfire's journey isn't over just yet. Since attempting to murder his brother Aegon so he can take the throne for himself, I've found Aemon's arc to be particularly fascinating, with it highlighting how disturbed, sociopathic, and at times incestuous the Targaryen family can be. Whilst initially starting out as a more sympathetic character who was bullied by his peers, Aemond has gradually become a more intimidating, villainous character who will do whatever it takes to gain control of the Iron Throne. Him and his dragon Vhagar are a perfect match, with them being so physically imposing and relishing in the cruelty. Alicent recognises that her son has gone down a dark path and has begun to fear him, which Aemond gets some kind of sick thrill out of. This is particularly highlighted in the season opener, when he kisses his own mother. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. This series has been a huge fan of incest, with it being the inciting incidents of Game of Thrones, but this is a whole new level of taboo. And whilst obviously disgusting, I found this to be such a fascinating moment, with so many layers to it. This kiss was Aemon testing his mother, seeing how far she'll go, to get him to leave for Harrenhal. Whilst clearly uncomfortable, she doesn't reject his advances, which he appreciates. The acting in this scene was really top notch, especially from Olivia Cook as Alicent. This season, we see how the mother and son have such a weird and complicated relationship. It's clear that Aemon's feelings towards his mother aren't entirely platonic, as shown by his sex fantasy later in the season. And then on her side, it's also pretty fucked up, with her coming to an agreement with Rhaenyra that she'll kill him, in exchange for the safety of herself, Helaena, and her daughter's unborn child. But with Alice Rivers vying to be Aemon's wife, he has someone in his corner who'll be loyal and fight for him, and she even provides him with the greatest weapon of all, dragon eggs. Speaking of which, dragons have been one of the biggest selling points of this series, with an extra emphasis on giving them more screen time compared to Game of Thrones. And in that respect, Season 3 certainly doesn't disappoint. Once again, they're able to capture the ferocity and intimidating nature of the dragons in a way that feels believable. These dragons are so unpredictable, which makes them especially intimidating. But crucially, the CGI is really good, which is so important to maintain audience immersion. We see the devastating consequences of involving dragons in human warfare, with them scorching people at every occasion. It's genuinely horrifying. Unlike the previous season, Season 3 ends on a real high note, with an action-packed episode full of twists and turns. We finally see the face-off between Aegon and Aemond, which is incredible. Aegon proclaiming that he's alive, before calling Aemond an imbecile, absolutely killed me. It looks like Aemond has got a lot of work to do to win back the trust of his brother. With her position as queen once more under threat, Rhaenyra takes drastic steps to secure her hold on power. She detains Baelor, sends Mysaria away, force feeds Helaena, and has the High Septon killed, after he refuses to anoint her as queen. She tells Daemon to be careful when they attack Tumbleton, because she knows that the realm is watching, and it could damage her support. But her actions have been ruthless, if not reckless, so I'm not entirely sure that that would make much difference. And with the Hightowers happy to use children as human shields, it means that a lot of innocent lives were sadly lost. And when Ulf finally joins the battle on his dragon, shit really hits the fan, with him taking out Ormond Hightower in a moment that had me genuinely cackling and fist pumping. Ormond was such a great addition to the series, with him being such a snivelling little weasel that you just love to hate. But this was a perfect resolution for his character. Credit to James Norton for such a wonderful performance. And in a fittingly dark end to the episode, we see Helaena has committed suicide, something that I think we all saw coming. And even though she is a sister, Rhaenyra didn't seem too upset, with her more focused on the prophecy that her sister had foretold. And yeah, wow, what an incredible way to end the season. In terms of issues, I can't say that I had many. If anything, I found the romantic scene between Rhaenyra and Mysaria to be slightly forced. Their kiss in the previous season came out of nowhere, leaving me feeling baffled, and with there being no real lead up to the scene in this season, it once again had me feeling, where has this come from? I never felt any sort of sexual tension between the two, or any sort of chemistry. It kind of felt to me like the show hadn't had enough sex, so the writers felt like they needed to just interject some, in case anyone was getting bored. It didn't feel like a natural direction for their relationship, and the fact that Rhaenyra quickly binned her off in the next episode made it feel even more perplexing. But despite my small nitpicks for the season, I can happily say that House of the Dragon is back to its best. The action is incredible, the character payoffs are largely satisfying, and the moment-to-moment dialogue is written so well that even in the quieter moments, the show remains just as engaging. Because of that, House of the Dragon Season 3 gets 2 big thumbs up from me, as it's certainly worth watching. So, what did you think of this season of House of the Dragon? And do you think the show's back to its best? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe for more. And I'll see you next time for another video. Goodbye.